In this video, you'll be learning how to fix your life and start winning at anything. I know you've clicked on this video because you're probably questioning yourself, feeling overwhelmed, probably stuck at your current state in life. But by the end of the episode, you will discover practical ways which you can get from where you are to get to a more productive state where you can start winning in life. Yeah. So how do we describe this state of being stuck and being overwhelmed by probably failures and pressures of life?
So, like, the best way to describe it, I would say, is just a person feeling like they're almost stagnant,
Yeah.
like not making much progress or the desired progress.
Sure.
Right? Because for each and every one of us, there's a particular place we want to be. Right? So, I think when you realize that, see, I'm not making the progress that I want, that's when your mind just automatically tells you, like, you're stuck. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
you've been in the same spot for
Yeah.
a long time. And I think the next thing would then be to identify why you're even feeling this way. Why are we feeling this way? Why do we at certain points in our lives feel this type of way?
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's it's a part of, it has been a part of every single person, right? At some point you felt this way, right? So when you understand the why, you can then figure out how to begin to take the steps to get you to a point where you are now progressing.
You just have to come to a point where you run diagnosis about your life. And to that point, reflecting back a couple of years ago, I had just finished university and I was, in that point where I was dreading the process of waking up. I think I felt so much comfort like being asleep than being awake because there was just no direction, you understand? And I felt very lost, and I was not happy, and it could reflect because I was always moody and it will reflect outwardly. And I think that is the number one reason why people feel stuck in life, is because of lack of direction. Lack of direction is one of the things that keeps us bound. It's like a chain, keeps you bound. And this could be as a result of probably failures. You feel trying so many things and you just feel like, you know what, I'm just a failure, so let me just remain. However, what we then need to do at that point is not feel sorry for ourselves, rather is to run diagnosis and understand why we are even at this point at this time. So if you're at that position right now, you just need to take a step backwards, and run a diagnosis, just like how a technician, if you have your device or anything that is fault, you take it to the technician, they will have to do a diagnosis and check how did you get here. Same thing with yourself. Run a diagnosis of your life. Why are you here? What actions brought you to this step? So I think that's one of the things that we have to do.
Another thing I would say is bad habits.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Talk about that.
Yeah. Because habits are very powerful.
Sure.
Right. Habits are probably one of the things that have gotten each and every person to be who we are right now, or even be doing what we are doing in the magnitude that we're doing it, right? So it may have started as for instance now, it's watching movies.
Yeah.
So at some point you're like, well, I'll watch one movie, and then you realize that you start binge watching to a point where you are spending
hours,
the entire day watching the movie. And it's not that movies are bad, it's just the amount of time that you're spending doing that. It must be a situation where that time is translating to some sort of value for you, right? And I think that's the same thing for certain bad habits that we have. Whether it's spending too much time gisting with friends, or not reading enough, or when you should be doing
Yeah,
work,
yeah.
you are you are busy
Doing the right thing at the wrong time.
yeah, like you understand?
Yeah.
It's those things. And so I think bad habits is another thing that just gets you to a point where you just feel stuck because habits essentially are what causes us to progress
Yeah.
over time. So in a situation where the habits that you have built are bad, you're not really progressing.
That's
You're
right.
just stuck in that same position that you
I think the word says all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient, right? Yeah. So that's the same thing, right? Like those things that she's mentioned, they are not necessarily bad, but
Yeah.
are they propelling you to get towards where you need to be in life? You know, and just like bad habits, like, you know, fear of change is another aspect that, you know, keeps us where we are. You know, fear of change, you know, because we are not certain of what's out there. And like, I'm probably sure you've heard this severally. You know, you never grow at the point of your comfort. You always grow at the point of discomfort. You have to step out. Now, I'll share this couple of years ago where the city where I went to school was a small town. And for what it was good for going to school because I mean, I guess it will help you focus in school because there's not so much distractions, you know. However, in terms of dreams and aspirations, I don't think that's a good place because now it's almost just like you're in a small town. You don't have so much things to look up to. It's just like if the ceiling of this house is just right above my head, it will be foolish for me to just get up and start jumping because I know I'll hurt myself. So same thing. If you are in environments whereby the places are small, the dreams and aspirations are small, you can't jump, you can't dream big because you're going to be confined, you know, to whatever it's in that place, you know. So you just have to find a way to enlarge your capacity by going to a bigger place. And that was the decision I made. Even though I knew I was scared, I just had to take that decision and like, you know what, if I perish, I perish. But I just had to make that decision. I left where I was and I was glad I left that place because now I left that place, I went to somewhere different and now started seeing things. Now I started seeing a glimpse of the life I wanted to live. That happened because I made the decision of leaving that smaller place to a bigger place. Yeah.
So I think this fear of change I would put
Yeah.
on the table.
Okay.
In the last video, I mentioned that
Yeah.
one of my challenges is fear of the unknown, and I think it ties into this is because fear, like as a person, when you have this fear of change, you would just like automatically you would want to be in your comfort zone.
Sure.
Anybody who knows me knows that I love comfort. I can lie down on my bed and still cross my leg just because that's just how comfortable I feel, right?
Yeah.
I would rather wear clothing that makes me comfortable
That's
than
right.
be uncomfortable. Like it's just
Yeah.
right. So in the same thing, when it comes to other areas of my life, I would automatically want to stay in the comfort zone. But I've come to realize that I'm not going to grow that way, right? And one way I know for myself now that I've outgrown a place is I stopped, like, it's almost like mental laziness. I'm not thinking anymore, right? So they give me something to do and I just do the bare minimum, right? And that's not me, right? So when I realize that I've gotten to a point where I'm not thinking, right? I'm not challenging myself
Yourself.
to actually
Yeah.
critically think, critically analyze, and do what is required, come up with a solution. I know that there's something.
Yeah,
okay,
there's
I need
something.
to step out to a point where I'm challenged.
You have to be challenged.
Yes, and that's the same thing, right? Whether it's with your group of friends or any type of circumstance that you find yourself, you need to be willing to step out, right? Because only at that point of change do you realize that you are growing. You are going from point A to point B, and that's just how I view it.
Yeah, that's so true. You know, to buttress on that point, I think another thing that keeps like us from not even attempting to change is excuses.
Mm.
We make excuses practically for everything. You know, I probably used to be one of those people that I just find excuse, and not to tell people, but to tell myself why I shouldn't do that thing. Even though that's what I always dreamt of trying to do, but then I'll find an excuse of why I think I shouldn't do it. So, but that kept me at bay of my dreams, because like I was not moving forward. I was not, practically living towards what I wanted to be because of excuses. You make excuses at every point. So if you find yourself as someone who makes excuses at every given chance you find, you need to stop that habit. Excuses and blaming others. Blaming others for instance, I think this is one thing I find among we as young adults. We blame our parents for the current position where we are in life. I mean, to some extent, it might be true, yes, because they brought you to the world. However, the point where you become an adult at the age of 18 or wherever you find yourself globally watching this, once you become an adult and the government registers you as an adult, you become responsible for yourself. Your parents are not responsible for your action or whatever. So you have to stop blaming your parents. Sit up, get up, and start taking responsibilities for yourself. I beg you, you need to stop blaming your parents. Maybe, yes, they never gave you advice financially, or they never give you the financial literacy and all of those. Quite all right. But now you have the opportunity. Go buy books and, get yourself out of there. So we have to stop giving excuses, and we need to stop blaming our parents.
So the way I see taking responsibility is that you can't make much progress as a person now until you begin to take responsibility. Because when you take responsibility, the action now, it's all down to you as the person to take those actions that will yield the results. And the example that I always give myself whenever I want to make excuses or I want to blame somebody else is that if I was sitting in a room and the room was dark, it's not that there's no power, there's power, but it's just that the light is switched off.
Yeah.
Right? And I want light so I can see what's in the room.
That's right.
I'm not going to say, okay, I'm just going to lay on my bed until miraculously maybe the light comes on and I'm going to see what's in there. I'm going to stand up from my bed, take the steps I need to take, get to the switch, turn on the switch, and then boom, there's light in the room. Right? That's just how, and that's the way I see taking responsibility. You as an individual, forget that, okay, this happened and all of that happened.
Yeah.
It's now you as a person taking the necessary steps that you need to take to get the results that you desire. And even in taking those steps, it's you progressing, right? Because you're not stuck in the position, like at the example I gave, I'm not stuck in the position of laying on my bed. I've gotten up, I've taken a couple of steps to get to the switch and then to turn it on. And that's just how that's just how I see it.
That's so true. I think what you just laid out clearly is that we must have a clear objective towards life. Because if you have no objective, like how do you even know what you need to fix? You understand? Just like the instance you gave, your objective was to have light in your room. Now you know that that's your objective. Now you know you need to take steps, which is get up, put on your shoes, and walk towards the light switch and put on the lights. So you have to put in effort. So what we're saying is you have to have clear objectives in life. I'm not someone who's so big on setting goals and all of that, but for me, I just like to have clear objectives. Today, I wanted to record a podcast episode. That was my clear objective, right? I didn't write it down as a goal. Oh, we have to do this then. Nah, I mean, if that's your style, that's good. However, like knowing that you have an objective and how you can get to achieve that, it's cool for me. So that was my objective. And I know what I needed to do, the things I needed to do to get the equipment, plan the topic and all of those things. That's how you do. So that's a practical step. if you need to get clear on how to move from whatever point you are to getting to where you need to be, if you're trying to start a business or you have a fitness goal, whatever aspect of your life, you need to have a clear objective. Even when, for example, if you're trying to work on your health, you don't just go into the gym and you jump and you're just trying to do everything. There's no clear objective there. What are you trying to work on? Are you trying to work more on your strength? Are you trying to work more on your agility or your endurance? You just need to have an aspect, because doing everything but there's no direction, you're just going to be tired. And that's why a lot of people quit the gym because there's no objective, there's no clear objective. So how do you even measure if you're making progress? Right? So you need to have an objective, and then you can start seeing progress and you make efforts towards where you're trying to go. Yeah.
Another step I'll say is fix your daily habits. Right?
Habits, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Habits.
How powerful are they?
Habits are powerful, right? And the thing is, at the start of developing a habit, it's usually just maybe a little
change,
just little change, right?
Yeah.
But over a period of time, it accumulates to a point where it's becomes part of who you are, right? So if you're doing something a particular way, eventually it forms you, right? And that's the thing. So you can now imagine if the habit you're developing is a great habit.
Wow.
You realize that the person you would be at the end of the day is someone that is great.
Yeah.
I think the word that's coming to my mind is formidable. Like you are a force, right? And that's just it. So it's like building these habits of, maybe if I want to go to the gym 3 days a week, I want to read. I want to be like continuous read. I want to be hungry for knowledge. If I put it that way. And hungry for knowledge, it means the spiritual, but also mental, right? Like you need to be someone that you want to learn, because again, learning is something that helps you to progress. Because as human beings, when we learn something, the thing is you want to try that thing that you learned, right? And that's just it. So you cannot imagine if you're building that habit of continuously learning. At the end of the day, you see that you're a force. And that's just it. So fix your daily habits. And don't spend time just binge watching movies, right? So for me, I used to watch a lot of movies.
Sure.
But I had to I love movies. Right? I just love it's like my chill tax, right? So what I had to do was replace it with other things. So listen to a message, read a book, or listen to a teaching, a sermon, right? Because these things, even if I decide I want to binge watch it, there's value. Value that can make me better.
So you're almost like tricking your brain to still,
So I'm watching someone just talking, but the communication is something that is valuable for me and my destiny in my life. And that's just it.
That's so true. I had a statement from someone I respect so much. He said, build your habits, and your habits will build the life you want for you. It's like so true. So true. And when he said that, I was like, yeah, that's really true. And you just have to cut the nonsense. You have to cut the distractions, like I also recall I used to binge watch a lot of movies too. Like I could sit down and watch like episodes of like TV shows and all of that. Now I don't do so much of that because it's not like they're not really productive towards my growth. So I stick to learning. I read more books and like watching podcasts, shows that challenge myself to think. So I think that's one of the things that you just need to do. Commit to learning. Cut out the distractions. Make sure a day doesn't go by without you learning something new. Stick to learning. What you know would help you build the life you want. And that's one of the ways you can, fix your path. Just to recap on some of the things that we've spoken about, we have spoken about how you need to take, number one, we've spoken about taking full responsibility. taking responsibility is the first step for you to fix your life and start winning. You must take responsibilities. You must stop the blame game. Stop blaming your parents, your friends, your environment. Stop it. Number two is get clear on what you want. You have to be very clear. What is the path you want? What is your objective in life? Are you trying, what are you trying to achieve? If you don't have a clear vision or a clear objective about that, you're going to still feel stuck. And then the third thing is building like routines and habits. You have to cut the distractions, find the good habits. Like I said, build your habits, and your habits will build the life you want, right? So those things that we just mentioned are the practical ways for you to start fixing your life. And now, I want to also dive into the aspect of mentorship and, role models, how that plays into, helping you become the person you want to become.
Yeah. I think with mentorship is these people have gone ahead of you. So the mistakes that you could potentially make, they've made them and they've overcome.
Yeah.
So surrounding yourself with these mentors or like-minded people who are progressing is the key word.
Yeah.
Right. That are progressing just does a lot of good for you.
Sure.
Right. Because when you go out and say I'm someone who's just new to a particular system or new to a particular industry, and I go in the midst of maybe four people who have been there, they know the ins and outs. When I come there, I'm going to be moving around with them. So where they know, I automatically know because I'm with them. The people that they know, the people that they interact with, I automatically know those people just by association. It's almost like blessed by association, right? So what that does for you is it helps you, right? So even if you got there day one feeling stuck, because you have surrounded yourself with those four people who are actively chasing goals and actively achieving these goals, automatically that mindset is becoming forged in you. Same thing when you read a book of someone who has told the path that you desire. You read it and you say, because this person could achieve this, I can do it, and even more, right? Because when you see that this person has achieved it as a human being, you want to say, okay, if they could do this, I've gotten to this point, and then I can
achieve it also.
Yes, and that's just how it is. So you keep striving for more.
And more. And then the saying that says you're the sum total of the 4 people or 5 people that you hang out with, right? So that's so powerful. Your relationships also and the people that you surround yourselves are very, very important to your progress in life. So if you're doing an audit, which I would encourage you to do, start doing the audits after you've done the audits of your life and your own responsibilities. Do an audit about the people around you. Who are the people you listen to? Who are the people you talk to? Who are your friends? Because if those people you listen to are just like you, I'm sorry to say this, but you're just going to remain in the same position. I'll share a very funny story. There was an experiment done by scientists. They put 3 monkeys in a room, and the test was to see behavior, how people behave. So there was a pole in the middle of the room, and at the top of the pole was a reward, like bananas or some stuff like that. So all 3 monkeys raced towards getting to the top. However, when they reach the top, the scientists have a hose where they pour water, a huge amount of water that flushes them down. So they kept on doing that, see the monkeys coming up, and then they fall down because of the pressure of the water. So they kept on doing it to the point where the monkeys stopped trying, and then they took out one of the monkeys and replaced with a new monkey, and then the 2 other ones there. So when the new monkey came in, he started rushing up to the top of the pole, but the 2 other monkeys start pulling him down because to them, they were trying to stop him from danger. Now, but the monkey didn't know what was happening, so he kept on doing it. until the point where like they kept on bringing him down and he got tired. They kept on doing that experiment. They replaced all 3 monkeys and brought in, they kept on doing it one after the other until like they were just only new monkeys, set of monkeys who never knew what was happening. So when all 3 new monkeys were there, none of them were attempting to climb the pole. Why? Because they got accustomed to what was happening in the room. They don't know the reason why you're not supposed to climb. But then that's the same thing, right? When you're in a place where everyone's like fixed to a thinking pattern, you're also going to be confined to such a place. So you have to find environments where you can, expand your capacity and help yourself grow more. So that is one thing to illustrate, this aspect of, finding your path. And I think the next step I would mention is, finding God's purpose for yourself. Out of all the practical steps we've given, this is the most important, right? Finding God's purpose for you. If you can, I would even recommend this is one of the places where you should start from, because if you're able to find your purpose or God's purpose for you, you'll be able to align yourself, you find your path. Because I think for myself also, this did so much for me, because, one thing I know right from onset is like I was gifted doing different things. However, I just didn't know how to channel it, channel of expression, But then finding my purpose in God just helped me to know exactly what I was gifted for and what I need to use that gifting for. It helps you to know what it is. Now, you can't find a soldier with a gun who is clueless about what he was given that gun for. Right?
That is true.
Yeah. So you have to see yourself as a soldier. You were given a gun. What were you given your gun for? There's a purpose to which you're given. So that's the same thing yourself. God will put you on earth to there was a purpose for you to achieve. So if you can go back and find your purpose, you will be able to understand the steps that you need to take in order for you to get from where you are right now to get to where you're trying to go,
So talking about purpose gives us focus, right? Because essentially, focus is what you truly need. Because the reason why anyone will be feeling stuck, even you watching this video, is because you don't know where you're, like there's no targets to where you're going, and that's what focus is all about. Now, when you bring that down to purpose, the only place, I mean the only person you can truly find your purpose is in God. As human beings now, that's the because He's the manufacturer, right? We are the created product.
Yeah.
Right. So He had.
He has the manual.
He had the manual. He has the manual, rather, for us as individuals, right? And you can only truly know how you would operate or how you should operate in Him.
From Him.
And that's it. The Bible says, abide in me and I in you. I think it's John 15, right? So the thing about finding your purpose in God is that He's a progressive God.
Sure.
Right? So you're feeling stuck, right? But the moment you find your purpose in God, you're abiding in God. Because He's a progressive God, you are automatically progressing. I'll give an instance. If I have my Bible and I have a pen, and the pen, God is the Bible. If I put that pen in my Bible, it doesn't matter where I carry that Bible to, the pen is also moving in the same place. If I move the Bible from here to the floor, we are on the floor. If I move it from here to the
You're always together.
Yes, and that's just it, oneness, right? So you need to build that relationship with God.
Yeah.
To a point where you are in sync with Him, right? And that's just it. In that moment, your purpose comes.
You would
eventually know what your purpose is. You would automatically be focused on that purpose, and that just aligns you to wherever you need to get to. And that's just the way that I see it.
That's so true. And I think we mentioned in the previous videos, if you've not watched, you can go back and watch how we talk about discovering your purpose. I think one of the ways we suggested there was serving your gifts, So if you can serve your gifts also, that helps you to find, your area of strength and also helps you to discover what God really intends for you. So, I mean, at this point, if you've been listening to us and you were feeling stuck at the beginning, I think by now you should have practical steps that you can get yourself started with. So the challenge for you today is for you to pick any area of your life, and decide to fix it today. Make a decision and work on it for the next 7 days and see what you become of, take practical steps little by little, follow through the steps that we've gone through. You can play back this video again and take those practical steps and get yourself from point A to the point you need to go. And that's how you get to fix yourself and start winning in life. So we would encourage you to share with us in the comment section some of the things that you learned that were valuable to you and some things that you'll be sharing with other people also. And we would love to see you in the next episode, right? So stay blessed. See you next time.